All right. Kia ora, everyone. Oh, I'm bumping my headphones. I'm sitting here with Mike Lash after a fantastic All Blacks win. You'd be feeling good, Mike. What did you reckon?
And it was a bit of, well, obviously a better performance than last week. I went away with the win. No one likes a draw. Probably still a few to look on as always. I guess, I don't know. I just thought the Aussies probably could have capitalised a bit more on some of the Aussies' mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe just push that scoreline out a bit further, but mate, win's a win, so
Absolutely.
Nice Sunday after footy.
Yeah, man. Mate, you're good to talk to here because I'm a big Richie McCaw fan in the way he holds a referee. And you're a referee, so you must know what that's like, having someone chirping your ears. And I think Hooper does that pretty well as well. I saw Aaron Smith try to get his point across, and then Hooper quickly came across and argued his case. Do you think where do you see Sam Cane in his referee management? I don't know if you like that word.
No. It's a fair question. I've dealt with Sam a bit before in the past, and he's quite good. He reminds me of a Ruben Thorne.
Okay.
Sort of goes about his business, kind of a bit more behind the scenes. I mean, I thought he played Unreal today. I thought he played Unreal last week. You know, he just leads from the front. Like he's certainly wearing that bad, you know, that armband with reason. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been times yet. I mean, he's only been captain for 2 games, really. There hasn't been times yet where he's had to kind of have that good old challenge with the referee, and it's certainly an art. I'm probably lucky in my career because I've gotten to know quite a few of the blokes off the field. And I've got a younger brother who's played first class rugby when I was refereeing it, so he kind of learned a few of the tricks of the trade off me, and how to approach referees. And I've always told them that, you know, it's always about having that communication when the time's right. And I think when you saw today, like both Michael Hooper and Aaron Smith both talked to Angus Gardner when like ball was dead. You know, there wasn't a situation where they were questioning a decision. It was actually just downtime. Everyone's emotional levels are relaxed. Everyone's chilled, and they can actually have an open, honest conversation. I mean, if I've just penalised you for something that you don't quite agree with, I know you're going to be frustrated. So if you tried to talk to me about something else that happened 50 metres away or 5 minutes ago, as a referee, I'm probably inclined to ignore the situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And vice versa, if I penalise you, you don't agree with it, and then I try and talk to you again about something else, you're kind of like, you don't know about it because I've already annoyed you, and now I'm going to try and add salt to the wound. So I've always told players to do it when you've just been rewarded a penalty, because you're in the referee's good books, for want of a better phrase. And the referee's the same. You know, if I've just rewarded you and you're chuffed because you've got this penalty that you earn, perfect time for me to then go to you, slip alongside and say, hey, look, I need this to be sorted. And you go, yeah, no, sweet, the ref, I'll get on to that, no problem. So I think what we saw today was quite good opportunities for both those players to have those conversations with the referee and actually get credible outcomes, rather than having those emotional or high level of emotional arguments when they're not really needed.
Yeah. I've always been impressed with Angus Gardner. Did you get a chance to work with him much in the NRC or the Super Rugby even?
Yeah, I did, mate. Yeah, actually, I got to work with him a fair bit, which was quite cool. As well as in the Lions tour.
Oh, wicked! Yeah.
Yeah, and I was pretty lucky. I got to ref in the NRC for a couple of weeks, so had the honour of popping around his house for a meal. So he's a good bloke, mate. He's laid back. He's a big family man. He's passionate about his footy, and he's quite. I mean, you've seen him. He's very chilled. You know, he doesn't let anything bother him. And I think like probably today's game would have been a lot more pressure on him. than any of the other international fixtures he's done because he's refereeing his homeland. And it was the same thing for Paul Williams last week. You know, there's a huge amount of added scrutiny because any decision that somebody debates, there's all of a sudden the keyboard warriors jump up and say, "Oh, he's biased, he's one-eyed, he's And I thought he did bloody well today. So yeah, it's quite cool to see him out there and create history for Australia as well.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I was watching with a couple of kids, and there's that double movement. The kids were like, "Oh, he's gonna give it as he's biased," and then he didn't. And I was like, "He's a good referee. Is what he is."
It's very hard to be, man. As a referee, it's very hard to be biased and not and it not be blatantly obvious. And I think if you did that as a referee, one, the rest of the referees would probably shoot you. But two, it would be so obvious that even the team that you've just, been biased towards would be probably feeling pretty uncomfortable. It's a simple game made difficult by the people that partake in it. And if you, as a referee, if you're going to start being biased, it shows up pretty clearly. And knowing him, mate, and the career he has ahead of himself, no one wants to play that card and finish their career early.
Yeah, man. Another impressive man was on the touch line, Ben O'Keefe. I remember playing rugby in Dunedin for Varsity Blue, and him just sort of starting out. He was doing his medical career and decided that refereeing was more him. What's it like, sort of dealing with such an intelligent man?
Oh, mate, I don't know if he's intelligent. I played golf with him on Thursday, and he beat me, so he's not in my good books at the moment. Mate, he's a top bloke. He's he's a very, very good friend, and it's been quite awesome to see him get to where he is and continue on his path. He is a deep thinker of the game. He still practices medicine. So he was actually in Nelson for a couple of days, Thursday, Friday, doing some locum work, and then he boosted off on Friday evening up to Auckland, refereed the Marco Auckland game yesterday, and then on touch today. So he's got a really good balance there with that, to be able to dip in and out of the refereeing and into his medicine and then back and forth. But he's when I first heard, I was actually having a couple of beers with him and another good mate of ours when I first found out he was practicing medicine, the following day I was like, oh, okay, he probably won't go as far as what we think he is, because we were all a little bit hungover. But he's a very, very good man.
Yeah, mate. You brought up your younger brother, and I nearly made the mistake of sending the email through to James Lash. I was scrolling through your Instagram there, and actually I played against him at that 2013 regional sevens in Timaru.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was when you were hanging out in the mighty deep south. How was your time there, bro?
Mate, I loved it. I was pretty fortunate to spend 5 years. It was quite cool to be there with him. But I arrived the weekend the Stags won the Shield, so it was perfect time to roll in. And so I basically turned up halfway through the party, and I think 2 weeks later the party sort of started to wind down a little bit. But I loved it. I went down there. I'm a helicopter pilot by trade, and I went down there to start for a job, and I was sort of refereeing 50-50. And I thought, I'll get down there and I'll just do it to keep fit and keep active. And the boss was quite keen for us to do it, to be obviously out in the community and that. And it kind of just, by accident, I suppose, in some ways, just took off. I got in front of a few selectors, and they just said, oh, look, we're quite keen to put you in for the South Island referee squad. So got selected into that, which took me to the regionals in the mighty Timaru. And then, then I was from there. I was into Heartland and all over the place. So I loved it, mate. I was pretty honoured to be able to do my first class debut out of Southland, and pretty big honour when my name got put up on the honours board for first class fixtures next to legends like Paddy O'Brien and Dave Bishop. And Shane McDermott. I don't know if I say his name too loud, but so.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
It must,
So,
must
yeah.
be must be a bit of a weird journey, is it?
Yeah, it's been a bit all over the show. I started refereeing. I did it at school to get credits for NCEA, and it was easy. It was PE, 10 credits. I was like, sweet. The more credits you could get, the easier you pass the year, and you could chill out. So, I did the course, and I've always had a good understanding of the law of the game. Growing up with the old man, we could play any sport we wanted as long as it was rugby, and we're a mad passionate rugby family. So I always had the law. Had one of my older brothers had the speed, and then the other older brother was just a bit of a tin ass, to be honest. And yeah, so when I carried on reffed in the morning when I was at school and played rugby in the afternoon, and then busted my knees a couple of times, a few concussions. And then when I left school, it was sort of, doctors were like, mate, you should probably just give it a rest. And so I went home to the West Coast and refereed, sort of the baptism by fire there. And as you could probably imagine, rugby on the West Coast is an experience in its own right. And I think that battle hardened me quite well. I got as an 18-year-old trying to tell these older blokes who you grow up watching, playing for the local clubs, you sort of knees barking orders at them. It was an experience, to say the least. But yeah, it probably moulded me into being able to handle some of that intense moments a little bit better. And then a couple of years at home on the coast, and then I was up in Nelson for a brief stint before I moved down to Southland. Still refereeing as well, but not as frequently. And then down to Southland for 5 years, and then migrated back to Nelson 2014. So represented 3 provinces, which was pretty cool, and been pretty lucky to go all around the country, as well as a few stints and a few. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, mate. So you were saying about refereeing older blokes in the West Coast. Is that just because rugby's a bit more of a way of life there? You got guys sticking around a bit longer, and how did that compare to Southland?
Yeah, you've got guys coming out of the woodwork. It's very much old school too. So rucking's kind of allowed, and if someone, no one's afraid to swing a punch and that sort of stuff. So you could very easily go into a game and dish out a handful of cards for a whole lot of signable offences, or you could have a ruck and you'd be watching a guy off his feet trying to play the ball, some guy, and then the ball's there available, so you're like, just get it going. You could easily make a game become a sevens match pretty quickly if you wanted to. So it really does test you, test that management and just your your mindset about staying calm in those sort of wild and crazy moments. And then comparing it to Southland, obviously Southland, the Premier competition, they got a pretty good setup. They had the Galbraith Shield comp, the Prems, and then they had the Country Division 1 comp, which in its own right was a Premier competition, albeit without the Stags players in there. And that was pretty cool. That was a lot more structured. They understood what shape looked like, what phase, and getting set up and all that sort of stuff at set piece and that sort of stuff. So that was quite cool. It still was very country orientated. Obviously, you got the odd trip to Te Anau or down to Ojai, nightcaps and stuff like that. So I live in a little place called Waikaia, so even myself, I was out in the country. So yeah, it was almost just like rolling into a bigger version of the coast in terms of travel and getting around. So which is, I mean, I'm a country kid, so it made it quite an easy transition. Yeah,
And,
that was good.
and so that was the Waikawa was where the helicopter job was. It was.
Yeah. So I was an hour and a half from Mimbers. Lived in a little on a station, little shepherd's quarters for a few years, just working for the helicopter company that was based on that. So that was a lot of fun. Really, really cool. Really, the boss was awesome. He was super supportive of my refereeing and having to go away and whatnot. So I always felt bad because you head off on a nice sunny day and the helicopter needs to be out doing work. And I'm up in Auckland reffing rugby. It was I always felt bad, but he's been supportive. He still is. So he's a good mate and he's always supportive of everything I did. So it made it quite cool, and it was interesting coming into a little township like that. Waikawa are pretty passionate about their footy, and when a referee rolled into town, but they supportive of everything I did. I got to go to Canada. Had to fundraise some money to get over there, and the locals put on I think it was the first Wednesday of every month. They do a quiz night at the pub to raise money for either Plunkett or the local team or sheepdog club and all that sort of stuff. And they put one on and raised some funds to help pay for my flights to get me over to Canada and back. So which was awesome. Like they just happy to help out locals going off and doing things. So it was pretty cool, pretty good night, pretty big night. Thursday was slow, but it was awesome. So I miss that place a lot. It's I hold it pretty close in the heart.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible part of the world. My old man and my grandfather, they've got a pretty close connection with a farm up in Piano Flat near Glenarie Station, and been there a few times as a young'un. The old bottle museum is a classic, and the 9-hole golf course it goes off at Easter.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, well, I was on Argyle, so we had a good crew, of shepherds. I think my first job at the helicopter company was actually tailing with the boys on the top of the hill, and I grew up on a farm, so it was a brand new experience for me. Nearly got talked into eating some mountain oysters, but when someone went ahead of me and I realised what mountain oysters were, I was pretty happy just to go, I'm not into that today. So. It was awesome. It was a cool spot. Yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of stories to come from that place.
You said you passed up on the mountain oysters, but did you eat the lamb's tails?
Nah, I didn't do anything. I jump in the pen and lift the lambs a few times, and they sent me off after that. I think they tried to make the most of me being green to that setup, and they were sending me off chasing single lambs when they just, a lamb would make a break, jump out of the chute or something like that, and hadn't been tailed, and they're like, go and get it. So I think, shit, we've got to get this lamb, and I'd take off down the hill and clean up a broom bush or gorse bush or something like that, and come back with this lamb, and the boys are just pissing themselves laughing, whereas if a lamb broke, it wasn't the end of the world. They still had 5,000 to tail, so but they were like, oh no, we'll just got to get all of them. Apparently, it was the world when I just fell for it. So it was good. It was good fun.
So what was the helicopter work you were doing?
So I worked for an ag company. So predominantly we were doing fertilizer and top spraying and stuff like that. So I was on the ground for a wee while, and then just driving around loading the helicopters, and then got after a season and a bit, got the opportunity to start ferrying the helicopter to and from jobs, and then doing a few other bits and pieces on the side. It's getting your license is one thing. It's actually being able to put it to work, get a job, and start building your hours. So in doing the egg stuff, you've got to get a rating on top of that, so which isn't cheap. So I was pretty fortunate. The boss was a good bugger, and he just was happy for the guys to work hard and reward them with flying time. And that's itself not cheap. So being able to get it for free is pretty is pretty awesome when you're trying to build your hours up to be sort of employable somewhere else. And then it worked in quite well for me because I was away often with rugby. Then I got to keep, I didn't get pushed through as fast as other guys did because I wasn't obviously there as much. But when I was there, I was able to work and keep the flying hours ticking over. So yeah, we did a bit of all sorts really, but predominantly the farming stuff. So just the fert, seeding and spraying, and then a bit of fire lighting when they were burning off areas and whatnot, stuff like that. So yeah, it was good fun.
Absolutely. And so how did you end up leaving Southland?
2014, I moved back here to Nelson. Rugby was going pretty good, and where I was in Waikaia, it was an hour and a half to Invercargill. It was hour 45 to Queenstown and 2 hours to Dunedin Airport. So getting anywhere was quite a challenge, and it was costing me a fair bit of money driving around, especially through my first season in the national squad in 2012. In the space of 3 months, I spent $4,000 on fuel. Jesus. Driving from Waikaia to Gore to go to the gym. Every Thursday I went to Invercargill and trained with the Stags. So just hung out with them for the day, did physio, did all sorts of stuff. And then of course, traveling too. We got reimbursed and we got a match fee, but it didn't really, it sort of, it wasn't enough to cover all of that bills. And being a low time pilot, you don't get paid a hell of a lot. People think that you get to, it's a money earner, but it's something that you've got to work pretty hard on before you get the opportunity to start cashing in on the checks. So that was probably one of the burners. I was also struggling a fair bit mentally, just being quite isolated and alone. And I needed to get closer to home. My parents were still on the coast. Two of my brothers are up here in Nelson, and I just sort of, Nelson's kind of been being boarding school here, and that's been spent at a time. It's always been an easy. I couldn't live in Christchurch. Couldn't. Whereas, say going to boarding school here, it's a familiar spot, so it was kind of a no-brainer to come back here and just lighten the load on the financial side of things and the mental health, and be able to be a bit more central to getting around. It's a lot closer to the airport, and of course, you go to Invercargill. To get to anywhere, you've got to fly to either Christchurch or Wellington before you head to where you need to go. So it made for a fair few long days travelling. I come home. I did a game in Northland when I was in Southland, and I left. I didn't really have any bugger all wait time in between flights, but I left. I left Whangarei at about 8 in the morning, and then I had about half an hour between flights from Auckland to Wellington, and then the same from Wellington to Christchurch, and then Christchurch to Invercargill, and then I had an hour and a half drive home. So I didn't get home till dark, and so that was the whole day buggered. Whereas being back in Nelson, it was been quite handy because I could leave, and it's a direct flight to Auckland, so I could book an early flight home and avoid all the traffic in the morning and be back here in Nelson at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the day's free to do something. So that certainly made it a lot easier.
Yeah, man. So you brought up the word there, mental health, and what you're doing with the real effect is sort of trying to deal with mental health in the amazing settings of fly fishing. Waikaia, you left some good fishing, but Nelson Lakes isn't so bad, eh?
No, mate, to be honest, I actually didn't get to do a hell of a lot of fishing down there, which probably drove me, not in a bad way, but it was hard for, in the aviation or in the agriculture industry, especially in the aviation side of it, you know, the age-old saying, you've got to make hay when the sun shines. So When the weather's good, we're out working, and that could be 3 weeks on the trot. The only time we'd have a time off was if the weather was bad, and even then it would be you were kind of, it was a cruisier day, but you'd still be working because you'd be getting everything ready for when the weather became good. So I'll never forget it. One of the first times I got down there, one of the other guys I worked with, he was into his fishing as well, and we boosted off in the afternoon about 3 o'clock. We're basically straight up from the hangar, headed to the Waikato River, and we saw a couple of trout, and the boss had said to us, "Oh, I'll come and get you if I need you." And we're like, "Piss off, mate. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. We're not working. We're done." And I'll never forget it, mate. We got out there, and I was like, "Yeah, this is good." Right, we're into it. Saw a couple of trout, and we're kind of like scoping them out, and then all of a sudden you just hear this turbine start roaring into life. And I was like, I said to my workmate Mike, and I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, that's the 500. I was like, fuck. So literally had to do everything. Boss flew over. Well, I did leave rod on the side of the river. He flew over, picked us up, and we were headed off to Seaward Downs to do some fur, just like that. And to be honest, it was probably a good couple of years before I got to get back onto the river. Luckily, one of the other lads went and grabbed their fishing rods, otherwise I'd probably still be there. But
Never got back.
yeah, like it was it. It was just we got to work, and that was so. I think for me, like I struggled a bit with depression a few years back from an incident that happened on the coast, and my release and my way of disconnecting is being out on the water and being out in nature, and being so sort of busy down in Southland. And of course, then when rugby took off, it made it really hard for me to try and fit in there. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, as well as the needs and wants to be liked. So I was running around working my ass off on the helicopter company to kind of justify the right to be away refereeing. And then when I was away refereeing, I was working my ass off to do that, to one, justify being there, but also justify to everybody back at home that I'm not, I'm not slacking off from work. I'm actually, working hard at this. And in turn, forgot to work hard on myself. So, yeah, with the Real Effect, I was trying to set it up as a program, more of an early intervention scheme for men's mental health. I feel that in New Zealand we're very good at creating awareness and emphasising the need to have these bigger conversations. But for me personally, my opinion is there's too much ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. There's not enough. There's not enough at the top saying, this come this way. And it's something that I feel I'm very passionate about, and I need to do this. It's something that when I stood up and acknowledged to myself that I needed to change and needed to sort myself out, and when I got a rod back in my hand and stood in the middle of a river, it just opened my whole world up to everything that I'd been missing out on, even though I felt that I hadn't, because I'd been so consumed in everything I was doing, trying to please everyone. And I was pretty fortunate. A couple of years ago, I took a couple of the coaches for the Tasmako team out for a day. They had a day off and they were into their fishing and they were keen to go. So took them out for a day, and I'd been mulling about this ideal of the Real Effect and setting a program up like that. I mean, they do it in Australia. They do it really, really well in Australia, and they do a few places over in the States as well. But I've been trying to work it out what's going to work best, here. And I took these two lads out, and we saw quite a few fish. Didn't catch any. And then at the end of the day, we stopped at a bakery for a pie and a coffee, and one of them, who's also a Super Rugby coach, just sat there and just said, "Mate, I needed that." And for me, it was quite uplifting and quite empowering, because I was like, we didn't talk an ounce of footy all day, didn't talk one word of shop, and we barely had that many conversations anyway. But it felt like we'd been, we completely connected on a different level. And yeah, it was cool because it kind of reiterated to me, right, this is actually, there's some benefit in this, there's some worth in actually doing this for our men, because, our men are good at bottling it up, and men are good at saying she'll be right. And, and there's also the tall poppy syndrome that we have in this country, where no one else can do better than someone else because someone else has already, I did that this year, back this and there. So, people are quite reserved in sharing their successes, because there's a phenomenal amount of people out there who are pretty keen to, knock them back to ground. And I compare that with our women who are, they have their own mental health struggles and that, but they just have such a better network to be able to talk and connect. Whereas, like I said, our blokes just shut up shop. And the real effect, I'm just trying to provide a space and an environment for them to knock down those barriers and have those conversations and speak about the bigger issues, and hopefully get away, disconnect, to reconnect, recharge and reset, and come back into the community as better men, to then go on and serve others. So it's an opportunity. Opportunities. I'm a big believer that talent and skill, everybody has, but opportunities, don't come often. Doors were opened up for me, they're opened up for you, and what I'm trying to do is open up doors for others to go on and do the same.
Yeah,
so,
man. You brought up that word, they were busy, and that's a good way to sort of hide away and sort of make an excuse for not doing something or not engaging. And it's very easy to say, oh, I'm busy. And again, another female good at articulating things. Dr. Libby says, you're busy at doing the things you say yes to, and that's what you were sort of saying. You were continually saying yes to the refereeing, to the driving, to sort of justify your existence. You see it all the time in the rural sector. I'm busy this week, mate. I've got this, and this, and this. And it's like, well, actually, you've got 12 hours in the day. Let's set aside half an hour and let's catch up and have a deload.
Yeah, everyone's busy being busy, and even now, post lockdown, everyone's trying to sort of recapture and re-get back those 6 weeks, and which, to be honest, is unachievable. I've gone. But I was very much like that. I was always, I consume myself with the rugby, and as a referee, there's a lot of footy we've got to watch. We've got to be deeply analytical about our game, and watching other games to kind of just understand different pitches and how we would referee that, and kind of fill our toolbox up. So when those scenarios present themselves in a game, we've got that, we can got the process in place that we can actually act on it and get the outcome. And so I was when I was really battling, I was very, very easy to say, no, I've got to watch some rugby, I've got to prep for this game, and I've got to do that. I didn't have a game for 3 weeks, but I'd say it just to avoid that connection. And I'm a quite an outgoing and friendly person. I care about everybody that comes past, through my path. But I was saying I was busy to, some of my best friends who say, mate, catch up for a coffee. And I'm like, oh no, I've got to go to training, or I've got rugby to do. I've got a conference call to have. I had fucking nothing on. I parked up at home watching TV because I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to get out. And it wasn't until a couple of events happened. I got in 2016. We had in the refereeing squad, we had a super squad, which was a group of guys that we were predominantly Mitre 10 Cup referees and assistant referees for Super Rugby. And at the end of 2015, it would have been 2015, there were quite a few guys that did the World Cup and retired. And then there was an opportunity for others to step up and go into the professional ranks, which turned out to be Ben O'Keefe, Paul Williams, and Brendan Pickerel. And I was in that group as well, but I I went the other way. I actually got dropped, and it was a frustrating. It kind of snowballed a lot of things. I got told one year that I needed to be more professional because I was quite laid back on the footy field and have a laugh and take the piss, and I got told off. In a game, Hawke's Bay Taranaki in Napier. It was a late game. It was back when they had the 6:05 and 8:05 kickoffs on a Friday, and I had the 8:05 game. And Richard Buckman asked me what the time was, and I said 8:30. And he was obviously wanting to know how long to go in the half, but I told him literal time of the day. And a couple of the other guys giggled and laughed and thought it was quite funny. And then I said to him, "Oh, mate, there's 10 minutes to go." And he sort of, "Yeah, righto." But I got told off because it was unprofessional. And so then at the end of the year, the review, they told me I need to be more professional. So I was saying, right, sweet, no problem. So I started being a hell of a lot more professional, turning up to games, dressed in proper attire, not turning up in a tracksuit. I actually turned up in our number ones, and I left in our number ones, and I was a hell of a lot more professional about how I went about myself. And at the end of that year, they told me that they want to see more Lashy. They think I'm, and so I was like, okay, righto. So relaxed a bit on the professional side of things. And at the end of the following year, they said to me, "We're not too sure if you know who you are yet." And on the surface, I'm sitting there going, well, what does that all mean? Like, you've just told me to sharpen up, then you told me to chill out, now you're telling me what? And underneath, I was really struggling at the same time. So when they told me that, and then they said, "Look, these guys are going ahead and you're actually going down a level," it was a massive kick in the guts, because I'd obviously failed on one thing that I strive so hard to do, was make sure everybody was happy and everybody appreciated me. So at that same time, I got aligned with a coach, Rod Hill, who was the referee manager for the referees at the time, who became a mentor in life for me. But that was kind of breaking point, because I also was working part-time at a tax refund place in Nelson, and that job fell over. And I was in a relationship at the time, and that fell over as well. So in the space of a week or 2 weeks, I went from sort of living life on easy street to going to all of a sudden being at home, curtains shut, lights off, no one home, just me for 3 weeks. Going to work, I was still phasing out of the job, but just shut up shop. And it was tough. It was hard. And I remember my brother come and pick me up. He's a builder, and he wanted a hand to load up some stuff, and he picked me up, and he just said, "How you getting on?" And I just told him, mate, I'm not good. I'm struggling. And it was a big wake-up call for me, because I was being this yes man to all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. None of it was actually making me happy, because I was too busy trying to make everybody else happy, and in turn not filling my own cup. And one of probably the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life was actually admit to myself that I needed some help. And as soon as I did that, just the whole weight came off my shoulders, and I just changed my mindset through talking to a counsellor for a while, about what was actually driving my need to. I was just filling the wrong cup. I was filling everybody else's cup and not mine. And when I pulled it back and worked it out that, I needed to fill my own cup and what that looked like, I fell back in love with the outdoors. And I became a yes man for all the right reasons. So someone would text me and say, "You want to go for a run?" I'm like, Yep. What time? We'll see you there. And I'd be there. And want a coffee? Yep. Be there. The coffee one was a tough one, because I ended up having about 6 or 8 a day. But that was it. That got me. It got me off the couch. It got me away from the bottle. I started drinking every night after work. I'd have a beer and ended up having a couple of 3, and it just wasn't good. Fitness blew out. I just turned into a slob, and I knew I didn't want to be in that position, but I felt like I felt like I couldn't. Have you been in a dream and you try and yell but you can't?
Yeah.
That's what it's like. That's what it's like. You want to reach out and you want to tell anyone, but there's no voice.
Mm, mm,
And when it came for me, it just, yeah, it was like going from a black and white movie to a color movie. It just sort of everything just opened up and became pretty special. And when I got back out into the river, actually I went down home to the coast for a week. Dad's he's a whitebaiter by trade, I suppose you could say. And I spent a week down with him and mum, and I just went up the river and I just stood in the middle of the river, and I could just feel all the pain and the negativity just washing off.
mm,
And yeah, it made me start to fill the cup. And I was pretty fortunate. We got to at a referee squad, so I went and pulled everything right back and said, right, what makes me tick? What really gets me up and gets me going? And I talked to a guy, Don Tricker. He used to be in New Zealand Rugby. He now works for the San Diego Padres baseball as a high performance manager. I was talking to him at a referee pre-year camp, and he said, we were kind of talking about this sort of stuff, and he just said that high performance sport isn't fair. If it was, everybody would do it. You and I would be all black, having a different conversation.
yeah.
But people get so focused on wanting to please everybody else, and social media is a massive driver of that. Everyone's fishing for likes. But at the end of the day, the only people that really matter are the ones that actually just care about you. And to me, that's my family and my closest friends. Family don't give a shit if I'm refereeing around Footy Shield bench. They're chuffed and they're proud, and they don't care how well I go or how poor I go. They just want to make sure I enjoy myself, and they just want what's best for me. They just want me to be happy. And when I blew all that apart and realised that I didn't actually need to go out there and read all the comments after every game that I ref to make sure that nobody was disappointed in my performance, and if someone was, get a bit frustrated and upset about it, it just shifted a massive weight. And it was, yeah, as I say, jumping back to the fly fishing side of things, the more I got out into nature in between matches, the better prepared I was for game day on Saturday. So I managed to climb back up into the ranks and get myself back into running touch for Super Rugby and being a senior referee in the national squad. So it was quite a I look back, I wouldn't change a thing. It was tough, it wasn't fun, but I wouldn't change a thing because I don't believe it would. I wouldn't be where I am now today and the person that I am if I hadn't gone through that struggle, challenge.
Man, thanks for sharing that. It's bloody powerful. You're saying about how it's kind of like a dream where you're trying to scream and nothing comes out. And listening to you now, you're extremely articulate in the way that you can describe sort of what's going on and what happened, and sort of putting words to the feelings that you had. As someone as well that sort of went through university, trying my hardest, trying to be good at rugby at the same time, and then sort of come the end of it all, starting work and going, holy heck, and thankfully a girlfriend at the time said, go do some psychotherapy, like find out, again, probably similar to you, find out who the heck you are. And then, it took me 3 sessions to just start to get some vocab going. And I've revisited it a couple of times with various professionals and through different things, like you say, opportunities, different times that psychological skills pop up, and they just give you a framework and a vocabulary to describe what's going on. How huge was doing some counselling,
But it was awesome because I still at the time had this fear of being judged by those close to me, because obviously we live in an environment of the hard nut or don't be a pussy. But I was still very reserved of sharing a lot of stuff too. people until I'd done my own homework on myself and how to kind of, I was going to say combat, but how to work in that environment. And then I could share it with others. And when I started sharing it, it was quite powerful because a lot of people, like when I started telling close friends, a lot of them were not pissed off. They were gutted that they didn't know and gutted that they weren't there to help out. And I've said to a lot of people when I've said to me, hey, look, I've got a friend who's struggling, what do I do? And it's like, you can't, there's only so much you can do as a support person. You can't, you don't need to understand or know what they're going through. You just need to be there to support and be there when you need them. But I think what also helped me was the refereeing. My coach, Rod, we delved really deep into the mental side of that. And I read, I suppose you could call them self-help books, but I read a lot of books on mental toughness and mindfulness. And
do you have some of the titles that you read? I found Dave Galbraith's book bloody amazing.
Dave Galbraith's awesome. What have I got at the moment? I've got that Perform Under Pressure, Kerry Evans, the one that Richie McCaw talked about. Yeah. I've read Mind Gym is a real good one. Really enjoyed that. There's quite a few. I've got a bookshelf full of them, and I quite often pull one every now and then. John Kerwin's book.
Yeah.
I've read that 4 or 5 times. My mum gave me that book, and it's pretty cool. I've read that quite a few times. Another family friend of mine, Doug Avery.
Oh wow, yeah,
farmer. I did a game over in Seddon. It was a pre-season Mitre 10 Cup game, and talked to him afterwards. I went to school with his sons, and it was pretty cool because I kind of just opened up to him right then and there because I knew he would understand. And I've got his book and I've read that a few times, and it's quite cool when you get to read those because, it's like watching a movie for the second time. You pick up on stuff that you missed the first time around. And I probably need to get double books because some of them I've written all through, or I've torn the page out and I've stuck it somewhere. And so, yeah, I probably need to, have a full, if I read them again, it's a bit hard because I all of a sudden lost in the notes. But reading those books and then putting them into practice in life and in rugby was really powerful because it allowed me to actually still very much bring me not only to the game but just me back to life. Like I said, I was running around trying to make everybody happy, and everybody saw me as a happy-go-lucky, funny person, but underneath I sometimes I didn't want to be there, and I'd make up an excuse that I had to go because I had a conference call, but no one was calling. So all of that stuff was massive just for me to be able to kind of just sit back and restock my own toolbox, and then from there being able to start the real effects and then share my own story through chatting with you and sort of on the social media channels. It's been quite humbling because I've had a lot of people, a lot of friends connect and say that they themselves have struggled or are struggling or battling. And it's been quite cool and quite rewarding for me to sort of, not I can't fix them or can't cure them, but just to be able to say, well, when I was struggling, I did this and I did that, and just trying to understand who they are as people, and then relate it to what they may do. There's Nelson. I've got a lot of close friends here, and some of them, it's a massive mountain biking region, and some mates have lost that, been struggling, and it's like, get back on your bike, mate, get back out to where you want to be, and then of course they go and do it and get a message going, mate, I should have done that months ago. Just, it's quite empowering, like I said before, about those opportunities. It's then passing that, what I've learned on to others, and this stuff shouldn't be bottled up. I've become quite an open book, albeit very nervous about it a lot of times when I share stuff or when I talk to people. I still have that, I'm very nervous and anxious about it, and because I'm being very vulnerable. But I see, I'd say the end. I see the end point. I see the benefit. I see what it can do
Mm.
by sharing, and hopefully, all it does is empowers others to do the same.
Yeah, mate. I was on a, what was it? It was kind of like a coaching mentor weekend with some guys in Australia, Real Movement Project, and they managed to get Steve Hansen on there, and he was talking a lot about Kerry Evans in his book and stuff. And that was one of the key takeaways from not just Steve, but a number of the coaches that spoke on there. They had the Brisbane Broncos coach on as well, and he was speaking about vulnerability, and they're just saying how much they've found that word, that vulnerability, enables them to connect on such a deeper level with their team, enables the team to be themselves. And you saw that in the Blues this year with the hair colours and stuff, like, being them true selves, and then following on to expression. And then you see you're still quite nervous and almost anxious about sharing this, because it's massive. And as I said, thanks so much for sharing. What do you think, and it was your brother, but what do you think was gave you that courage to say to your brother, not, oh yeah, she'll be right, but actually, mate, I'm in the shit right now.
Mm. I think a combination of things. At the time, I was sitting at home, and I've got a dog with Jack Russell, and he's been my best mate for 9 years. And he came up and sat up beside me, and your dogs are powerful things, man. Like, they know when you're down, they know when you're up. And he came up and sat beside me, and he's only a wee fella, but the look on his face was like, he could tell something wasn't right. And he gave me this lick on the side of the face, and it sort of like I said, they're powerful creatures. It really, it just kind of it put things into perspective.
Mm.
And at the same time, my brother he texted to say, "Oh, can I grab a hand?" And the weak dog, man, I get a bit choked up talking about it, but it just put things into perspective that, what, I need to get right. I need to sort this out. I've got a family that deeply, and I would do anything for, and I've got friends that, I'm the same, and there's so much to life. And my brother, like I say, we're a very tight family. There's four of us, four boys, five if you include the old man.
Your mum's done well.
Oh yeah, she's a saint, mate. I don't know how she's done it. She's given birth to four boys, but she's had to raise five. So, when I sat in the car with Andy, and I just said, "Oh no, mate, I've got depression. I'm not right." And I'd done a wee bit beforehand. I'd been home as well, and to the coast. And I told mum and dad, I said I was going to go. I was down at the Whitebait Hut with them, and I told them that I was going to go and catch up with a couple of mates for the night. And we're going to go to Franz Joseph and a few beers and whatever. And just went back to their house, parked up on the couch, and I did. I got on the depression.org.nz website and did John Curwen's test, and that hit me between the eyes, because it was saying everything that I was feeling, and it felt like the computer was talking to me. And that was tough. I lay on the couch and cried most of the night, and then the next day went back down to mum and dad, and then left. And then it was a couple of days after that Andy messaged me to give him a hand. And the fact that, I think when I said it, it just came out when I said to him, I'm struggling, and he didn't react.
Mm-hmm.
He just listened to understand. And he's got a couple of young kids, and they're my kids. And I've never, battling depression, I've never been in that suicidal mindset, but I've certainly had times where I've just happily get on a plane and bugger off to another country and start afresh, and just don't want to be here anymore. But it was just a wave of emotions that kind of came back, and his kids, my older brother's kids, who, like I said, done mine. I just said to him, and I think as soon as I said that to him, I'd already accepted it, and I already acknowledged it to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think for anybody like with depression or anxiety, the biggest challenge of it is being honest to yourself and acknowledging it. And I think once you do that, it makes it it knocks those barriers down. So when I did have that conversation when I told my brother, it was a lot easier because I'd already accepted it in my mind.
Mm-hmm. And there's a sort of a structure of grief out there, and that's sort of your final step, or your aim to get to, and you'll go back and forth. But if you can get to acceptance, then you can start making a plan. And so, how did you sort of begin to make a plan to move forward?
So I sat down with the counsellor, and we just sort of delved real deep into what the driving force of it all was, and from there just began to set in play some sort of daily tasks and weekly tasks, what I wanted to do for the day to be on the right side of the line, and a lot of it incorporated what I need. I need human interaction. I need to communicate and talk shit with someone about the weather, or I need to catch up with my mates and have a laugh and have a bit of banter. I need to be physical. I have some physical exercise for the day. I need to move. And then the weekly ones was, I need to be outdoors. I need to go for a run. I need to either go fishing or go for a walk or be in nature. And I need to, sort of succeed in those daily tasks to obviously succeed in the week. But it was also ones that are small wins. We're often always focused on achieving the big stuff, but it's just those small wins. And if we didn't get it done today, they weren't sort of they were measurable in the sense that it was realistically achievable. So like, say, having a coffee with a mate, or going for a walk. Well, that wasn't. I could walk to the coffee. So killing two birds with one stone, but I was still sort of outside and interacting, and it made it easy, and it was also about getting we try and get a balance in life, but it was more about getting a rhythm, because some weeks some of those goals weren't achievable because of the week that was ahead. It might have been that's like when I was in Mitre 10 Cup a couple of years back, they had the Wednesday night games, and so some weeks I reft on a Sunday in Manawatu, a Wednesday in Dunedin, ran touch for the Tasman here on a Thursday night, and then Saturday I was in Auckland for a game. So busy week, yeah. So so ticking most of those boxes was quite a challenge. But you look at that week and it's like, right, it's a compacted week. But then if you actually open it up to 2 weeks, it's pretty even.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people can get so narrow focused on that week and how much it's compacted. I haven't got time. But if they open it up and go, well, in the space of 2 weeks, it's actually next week. I'll smash this week. I'll sacrifice a mountain bike ride. I'll sacrifice a swim because I know next week I've got a hell of a lot more time to catch up on it. And yeah, I think everyone's so time poor at the moment, which makes it real tough. But if you open the week or the month up, it might just be those 4 or 5 days out of those 30 that you're actually jam-packed work-wise, and there's plenty of time next week. It's got to be done today. It's got to be done today. It's got to be done today. Well, maybe do it tomorrow. Plenty of time. And yeah, for me, it was about accepting that, because in the past I did the opposite. I was always no, I've got to get this done. So he's happy. So then he's happy, and then she'll be happy, and we're all happy, and life's good. And it's like, right, sleep, rinse, repeat, do it again. So by kind of going, well, okay, it's not going to happen this week. Planning my week, I was a big believer in plan the work and then work the plan.
Yeah.
And every Sunday was quite religious in that sense, that I would plan the week and how it's going to go about. And obviously the goalpost could move because the what ifs would jump up. There'd be something at work that all of a sudden took the day. So your 2 o'clock catch up with your mate for a brew, all of a sudden, didn't happen. So for me, mate, it was just about planning those micro plans and those micro goals throughout the week, which in themselves created the habit.
Yeah, mate. I think the other powerful thing about having the plan, like I've got a year planner written down. That was one of the things that the coach I did some work with early in the year sort of said about, get your next 6 months, roughly laid out, and like you say, have a plan and stick, and what you say, work to the plan, and then you get the opportunity to look back at it and you go, holy heck, there's like you say, the micro wins. There's a lot achieved there, eh? And that gives you I don't even think it's a dopamine boost. I think it's more like a serotonin boost. You're kind of like, man, I've scaled up or something like that. It's awesome.
Definitely, and it allows you to lift your focus up to look further.
Yeah.
And you're right, and a lot of that stuff, like I said, it creates those habits and becomes routine, so that when you start looking further ahead, you start looking 12 months ahead, because you're achieving those goals, and even then in themselves they fall off in that sense that they're no longer goals, they're habits. So new ones come into play, and it might be that in the gym you're deadlifting 80 kilo, and after 4 weeks you're doing 120, but for you you can't even remember doing the 80 because it's long gone. It's a forced habit. So mate, it's very much the same. It was quite cool because for me through rugby, because rugby was quite constant, obviously week in, week out, the weeks were quite constant, but they were also varied in the sense that the games shifted, so different days were quite different things, and it also allowed me to have a lot more self-confidence. That if I didn't get that done today, it's not the end of the world, and I'll still be able to referee that match on Saturday with the skills and capabilities that I've already have. So throughout the week, you'd watch a lot of footy and video clips on different scenarios and different phases of the game. And if for some reason you didn't get to tick your daily box of watching X amount of clips for the day, it's not the end of the world. Everybody knows what a knock on is. Everybody knows what a scrum is and what a forward pass looks like. It's if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. Like when I spent 5 years down in Southland, I never got to referee the Premier final, even though I was in the national squad for a few years while I was down there. I was number 2 referee behind Keith Brown, who was the current professional referee. Ironically, I didn't get to referee the final because the reason was because I wasn't from Southland. But looking back, I've been fortunate. I've done some referee shield matches. I've done Heartland semis. I've AR'd Super Rugby and that, and I've never once gone, shit, I wish I'd done that final. I know what to do right now. Yeah. So it might be for you that throughout the week you miss a run, and then you go off to an event and you get around the 30th K and you've got a K to go and you start cramping. You're not going to be like, shit, I wish I'd run that 10K run 6 weeks ago. I wouldn't be cramping out now. It's just if it hasn't happened, it's that day. It's not the end of the world.
And from my experience trying to get into Southern Sevens teams and Canterbury Sevens teams, it's been, I wish I had done a little less training. We always went too hard and build something or whatever.
It's very easy in sevens, mate. It's very easy. I was riffed a fair bit of that in my time, and it's very easy to see guys. I used to, and even it was always funny doing the Wellington Sevens or Hamilton Sevens now, because they had each team obviously has physios and doctors and that, but they had on-site physio masseuse for guys to get rubbed down pre and post game, and every time you go in there for a rub down, it's just bodies everywhere. The boys just put themselves through the ring, and even as the referees, like 14 minutes isn't much when it comes to if you compare it to obviously to 15-a-side game, but the speed and distance that you travel in that 14 minutes is still quite up there, and you go from out and out acceleration for 15 minutes to nothing. And when we were doing the ARing for the stuff, you'd have a game sort of every hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very easy to do it, and then head off, take your boots off, go for a walk around the concourse to check out all the costumes and stuff, and then park up, and that'd be it. And then 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before the game, you go and get yourself ready, and of course you cool down, and you know what it's like. All of a sudden, everything's just stiffens up, and you're like, shit. Oh, crap, so you get outside, quickly grab on the bike to try and warm things up. Even all you're doing is running touch, but you're sprinting up and down that sideline doing, back-to-back Broncos. The very first time I did it, I was pretty quickly after my second game into the sheet of the masseuse and getting the old legs sweaty and the muscles relaxed out. It was it was a bit of a laugh.
Mate, you spoke about sort of opportunities and mates, and then obviously speaking to things, more people come out of the woodwork. What was it like to sit down and have a good yarn with someone like James Marshall, and obviously people like Duplessis Karifi in Wellington and Artie Severe as well? I've been speaking to this mental health stuff, but to have someone from Nelson say, come on board and let's hear about this. The rugby community know you. That must be awesome, man. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it's cool. I've known Marshy for a long time. I never got to play rugby with him. I've reffed him a few times, but every time I've played sport with him is we played league at college. And that we were having a bit of a laugh about that beforehand, because we went down and played in a tournament in Christchurch versus Aranui High, St Paul's from Auckland, and what was the other team? I was going to say Mount Albert Grammar. I can't remember. There was three teams. Well, there's 5 teams. There was us plus those other 3, and then an invitational team from Christchurch. And we had one guy in our team that had played league before, and he was Australian, and he was terrible. And we got absolutely hammered. We got beaten the first game 92-0. And I'll never forget, I played fullback, and I used to love when I was playing just getting the ball and hitting the line. If I got smashed, I got smashed. I don't know why. I just enjoyed it. And I'll never forget, I got the ball from a kick return and ran probably about 10 metres and got absolutely just broken in half by these 2 boys. And I was winded, and I got up to play the ball, and the guy marking me just slaps me on the back and goes, "Good run, bro," and winded me again. And I was flat. And yeah, that game was so hard. I was so sore. And then we played the next day. We lost 98-4.
Right.
We managed to score a try. I scored a try in the corner, and so everybody was just like, "Yep, we got a try. We can go home now." And then we didn't play Aranui, which was pretty great. Played an invitational team, and Marshy carved up. Actually, he was putting all these up and unders, and we managed to win that game. But oh man, it was an experience. It hurt so much, but yeah, it was cool to catch up with him and and talk about it, talk about my journey and the mental health and what it's the challenges it's thrown up at me. It's a good thing, mate. It's like I said, there's too much awareness raised. Not a bad thing, but there's just not enough being done to change the culture. And I think that's what we need to do, and hopefully by, you know, chatting to him, chatting to you now, you know, if I can get one other bloke to open up, then, you know, we're on a victory. And I've known Dupes for a while now too, and it's been pretty cool to connect with him as he's shared his journey, and he's done you know, he's done his talks, and it's pretty powerful, you know, when you get him and you get the likes of Adi Savir talk about it. And like you said, vulnerability, it's a massive word, and it's extremely powerful to see these guys, these battle-hardened men, you know, open up and say that it's, you know, it's okay to not be okay, and it isn't weak to speak, which it isn't. But they're actually walking the walk. It's extremely powerful, mate. It's awesome.
And I think that you've hit the nail on the head. It's like not just acknowledging, you know, the vulnerability of where you're at and what you've been through, but and here's what I did. You don't have to do it this way, but here's our tool, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, for me, the outdoors and fishing. Like, I grew up in the bush and on the river on the coast, and it's always been a part of me. And like I say, when I lost it, it was a tough time. But it doesn't work for everyone. You know, the real effect that, like, we use fly fishing as a vehicle to get outside and speak about the bigger issues. You don't have to know how to fish. You don't even have to have fished before. We provide all the tools, all the gear, food, and everything. It's a vehicle to get our men outside into our nature, into our you know, comfortable surroundings, and have these types of conversations. And I've been pretty fortunate doing these missions and taking blokes out, and you know, we've sat around a campfire and counted satellites, and it's been, you know, we haven't had the open, raw conversations, but we've felt like we've had conversations like the whole time. I've taken guys out where, you know, we haven't even had a set of words to each other for an hour, and we felt like we've had the best conversation. And that's probably why I like the fly fishing idea and the concept, because have you done it before, fly fishing?
Nah, it's my one of my bucket list items: spear fishing, fly fishing, all the things, as I've said a couple of times.
And it's an art. Like, it's not. There's an art to it, but it's also it's so much more than fishing.
Yeah.
You know, you when you're on the river, you've got to move as the river does, and you've got to, when you see the fish, you've got to understand what the fish is doing and what it's feeding on, how it's feeding, and then with that, you've got to pick the fly that best imitates the food it's eating, and you've got to lie it in the water as elegantly and as softly as you can, with to, you know, not spook it, but also in the right place so that it comes across its nose and then it sees it and it'll, you know, eat it. And then with that, when you hook the fish, that's only part of the battle. You're in this battle to keep this fish, because the line goes from being about 20 pound thick to 2 pound thick, because, you know, it needs to be that small to make the fly look as real as possible. So it's very easy to just give it a big yank, and all of a sudden, you know, the day's over, your fish is gone, compared to being out, you know, in the sea when you get a cod and you just wind it and, you know, chuck it in the bin. So it's quite an art, and when you're doing that, you're so, like, that's why I think it's really powerful in that mindful sense, because you're in the moment. Nothing else going through your mind other than what you need to do to get this fish, where you need to be in the river. And then when you get it, there's nothing going through your mind other than making sure that this fish makes it into your net. So if it takes off downstream, you've got to take off with it. You've got to let it fight and let it do its thing. And then when you get it in the net, and when you do, it's quite a sense of, you know, it's that adrenaline rush. You know, it's not the dopamine. That was the other one that you.
Serotonin, yeah.
Serotonin. No, you just get, you've won this battle, and you've got this beautiful, beautiful fish. You know, we're always putting it back in the river to live another day. And I've taken guys out, and they've experienced that, And I've just said to them, oh, what have you been thinking about today? And they'll be like, not a thing.
Yeah.
Not a thing. They haven't even thought about their phone. They haven't thought about work, in the nicest possible way. They haven't thought about home, which some people need that complete disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, fly fishing does for me. I can fish. I went fishing today, didn't catch a thing, but totally at peace.
Awesome.
And that's what, and I guess that works for me. Different things will work for others. It's just about finding that, that childhood love that you've always had, or that one thing that just makes you feel. It's about mindfulness, mate. For me, it's just, and it doesn't mean to be sitting under a tree with your fingers closed and your eyes closed. It's about being in the moment and being totally connected to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, for anyone, it's just finding that and indulging in that, and I'm sure it'll open up doors for them, mate.
Absolutely, mate. You're speaking earlier about the concussion at high school and how the doctors sort of said maybe your contact sport time is up, and I've had a pretty serious one myself and a number of minor ones. Do you think that ever played a part in your mental health journey? Do you know? And
also, I don't know. I'm not. I couldn't tell you. It did gut me that I sort of had to hang up the mouth guard. I have made the odd cameo appearance since, I will admit. Don't tell the doctors, but I think from a young age, like I said, growing up on the West Coast, Dad was coaching the senior B team, and we used to get around. Me and my little brother were ball boy, T-boys every game. And I was telling the story the other day. I remember our local club, South Westland, was playing against Cockatoo, which is inland from Hokitika. And the referee at the time, Matthew Fairmaid, was getting abused, like pretty severely. Like I said before, I've always had a good knowledge of the game and laws. And even though I was only about 12, I was like, well, leave him alone. He's right. He's right in what he's saying. And he called the game off with about 5 or 10 minutes to go and said, nah, buggy is, I'm off. I'm not putting up with this. And fair enough. He shouldn't have had to deal with that sort of abuse and that crap. No one should. But I remember then thinking, you know what, when I'm done done playing, I'm going to referee. I'm going to, get out there. I'll be 60. I'll get out there and run around with the little kids and get back to the game. Little did I know, 6 years later, it would actually be, that plan would be coming into play. So that was kind of my early way of getting into refereeing. But in terms of the mental health, it probably stems more from an incident that happened at home in 2009 on the coast, where I used to be mad into motocross, and like I said, outdoors and that sort of stuff. And once I left school, with a few mates that had come back from their colleges around the place and back on the coast, so we sort of reignited a few old habits, I suppose you'd call it, without getting in trouble. So we were kicking around doing all sorts of stuff, and we went motocross riding out in the riverbed at home, and there was a whole lot of us there. There was a couple of families, and the old mate had the tractor out and he was making jumps, and that was quite a cool exciting day. And me and my mate turned up a bit late, and the one of the parents was there and said that her and the boy, her boy and his friend had headed off down the boulder bank and had been gone quite a while. Could one of us go down and check on them? And I only had a 2-stroke bike, so I needed to warm it up before we were around this track. And I said, yeah, sweet, I'll go down and check on them. And I got halfway down, and one of the young boys, Tane, comes running up the track, and I could tell he was flustered. I was like, what's going on? And I pulled my helmet off, and I was like, what's up, mate? And he just says to me, he said, oh, Keegan's crashed and he's not breathing. And I was like, shit. I said, carry on, head back and tell everybody and tell them to get down here. And I carried on, screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to find him, trying to see where he was. And when I found him, he was in a bit of a state. He was in these rocks, and he wasn't breathing. And so I had to get him out of the rocks and get him onto the actual track, and from there, and get his helmet off and get his chest armor off. And I'd start doing CPR on him, and it was probably a couple of minutes, but for me, it just felt lifetime until everybody else turned up and started helping, and then the fire brigade turned up and the local doctor, and he didn't make it. And I think that's probably a big thing that sort of kick-started it, because I felt I'd failed for a long time, and from there that started me running. I didn't want to fail, so it wasn't long after that I left home. I went up to Nelson to finish my chopper license off, and then got the job down in Southland, and then there was just instances throughout my life thereon that when I failed, I kind of packed up and ran. And like I say, when I was down south and I was missing out, I was working so hard to try and make these opportunities in refereeing, and I was missing out opportunities flying, and I was just so lonely. And I ran back here to Nelson, and so that would be the main starting point. It was tough after that because I had a really good friend, a real close friend. That hit home even harder for me because she was a beautiful, beautiful person. Somewhere else, and I felt so helpless not being able to help her, where I just was not doing enough to help people, and it just made me run further. So a real tough time, and it wasn't. And I think, like I said, when I got to the point where I said, like, I've got to stop running, I can't, was when I could sort of accept that I did the best I could. And in that accident, I had nightmares for a long time about not doing. And moment where the clouds kind of open up, a little bit of he came through, and I'm not a spiritual person, but I just felt for me like it was a little bit of a sign to say, look, mate, it's, you did your best and keep living. So that would be where it came from, and it's just been a big catalyst to drive me to where I am now and to what I'm doing, what I want to do now. So
yeah, that's bloody heavy. When like we saw it today with Joe Moody getting knocked, when you're in the middle and someone's in a weird situation like that where they might be knocked out or whatever, do those sort of feeling, did they come back at all? Did you ever have that experience happen?
No, so probably the toughest in a game. I'm very conscious of that sort of stuff. I'm a big believer for these rugby boys that they need to be aware of life after rugby. To try and be. It sort of pissed me off today when the commentator said, because the mindset there, we'll probably see him play. He should be chilling out for a while. So I've always been passionate from the refereeing front. When an injury like that happens, is just to stop and say, no, you're heading off. You're not staying on. and go to that person after the game and actually say to them, look, mate, there's so much, you don't need to play the next 10 minutes to justify being in the squad. Like, you've got to think about yourself. And I'm pretty fortunate, like, living here. I've got Ethan Blackhead as a flatmate, and I know quite a few of the Marco boys quite well, and quite a few other boys from around the country, and having those conversations with them just so that they do realise if it's an injury, like Ethan's injured at the moment, and he's doing everything he can to get himself ready for next year Super Rugby, but he's not in a hurry because he knows that rugby's so it's an unknown time frame. The average professional life, like career, I think, is about 5 years. So if it could end tomorrow, where either they have a concussion and they're finished playing rugby for the rest of their lives, or they get dropped and no other team picks them up. And what are they going to do? And they won't be able to do a hell of a lot if their body's fucked. So on the footy field and scenarios like that, I've always been a big believer in to say to them that there's so much more to life than than this 80 minutes. And it probably comes down to a whole lot of other stuff. So I haven't had any scenarios where that sort of stuff's come back. I had a situation. I did a Heartland game a few years back, and I was doing a Mitre 10 Cup game the following week, and I had a scenario where kick went over. It was a hand and shield game, actually, mid-Canterbury, South Canterbury. Kick went over the post, and one touchy didn't raise his flag, and the other one did. And the one that didn't really look to see. He just turned and headed off. And the other one behind him was in the national squad with me. And he didn't raise his flag. No, it didn't go over. So I didn't award it. And of course, the team that missed lost. And so they weren't happy, which to an extent I can understand, because one touch said yes, one said no. At the end of the day, I've got to make that decision. And from my view, from where I moved to see, it didn't look like it went over. But I got a phone call the night before I was due to fly to, I had North Harbour, Otago. The night before I was due to fly. We travelled the day before, stayed the night, and then you come home the day after for a Mitre 10 game, or especially if you're crossing the Cook Strait. And I got a phone call from one of our referee coaches. He took shreds off me for that decision, because he was mates at the time with the coach of the team that lost, and of course he was pissed off. And I was also in that same mindset of making, having that need and want to be liked. So I thought I refereed well. I thought my review went pretty good. I was areas in the game I needed to improve on, but I was excited about putting that into practice that coming game. And so when I got that phone call and got the shreds torn off me, it all of a sudden it just left me in this massive space of anxiety and doubt. And I was like, fuck, I'm not capable of this. And I didn't sleep at all the night before I travelled. And then the whole night, the whole day, the day before the game, I just had this massive panic attack, massive anxiety attack. I couldn't once I got to Auckland, I couldn't sit up in the car. I felt like if I was going to spew. And so I was quite get the cold sweats and quite sort of just disorientated about the whole thing. And I got to the hotel, and I was just sitting in my room going, fuck, I can't do this. I'm not up to this. This is not, I can't. I've failed this. They've said I got it wrong. I've got to get it wrong in such a straightforward game. And I ended up grabbing my phone and trying to watch motivational videos on YouTube to snap my mind out of it. And I did that till about 3:00 in the morning. And then I managed to get to sleep. I think it was just the fact that I was just totally exhausted. And I got up in the morning and was still sort of in that mindset. Although I think fatigue had kicked in a bit too. I was quite tired. And I went for a walk around Albany. I went and got a haircut. My game was at about 5. And I went and got a haircut. And I remember just talking to the barber, and he was going on about I think he was going about his daughter or something quite random. And it just managed to kind of calm me down, because all of a sudden I just started asking him questions about it, and it just sort of took my mind off that whole fear and worry. And there was just a few things that he said, and a couple other people said throughout the day, that just sort of brought me back around to be like, yeah, you know what, that was out of my control. That was someone else's issue. So if coach isn't happy with it, tough shit. And I got through that game. It was a pretty mundane game of footy. But yeah, that's probably the only time in my career where I just had a massive, massive anxiety attack the day before, and I just was freaking out. Something wicked. The cold sweats, you know what it's like when you wake up in the morning, you've had too many beers, and you just think, oh shit, today's going to be a tough one. It was just like that, and I just felt so tiny. I just felt so minute, sitting in the back of this taxi on the way to Albany, just like I couldn't sit up, because if I sat up, I was going to spew. And I don't know what it was like for the taxi driver, because I was almost bloody lying down in a model pose in the back seat, because I couldn't sit up. The stomach was just burning. So it was from that point that I did a bit of work with Jason McKenzie, works for High Performance Sport, as mental skills coach. And I connected with him, and he was awesome. He was a massive help for me, just getting myself, probably just without him knowing, probably just helping me to kind of bury those emotions, to make sure that they didn't come out. Because the last thing I want to do is have something like that in the middle of a game. Because that would have gone completely against everything I'm trying to achieve, when I'm out there on the footy field. And it's an unachievable goal to have everybody, for the need and want to be like. It's a high aspiration, but it's unachievable. Yeah. Especially as a referee, for crying out loud. Like, you come off a game, at least 15 people aren't going to be happy with you. Yeah. Well, they're not going to be happy with it. They're not going to, it's not. So it took a while for me to realize that, and to kind of overcome that. And I'm probably see it now that it is what it is. Like if a scenario happens, someone puts a golf ball through my window, oh shit, let's get a new window. Well, life's not over. So, I've got a few of those battle scars, mate, which I think have probably helped me have a bit more open-minded, that growth mindset that I have today.
Nice. And sort of, do you think you sort of spoke a little bit about there with Ethan, and, whilst I haven't played Super Rugby, I've definitely felt the all-consuming thoughts of trying to make a team, and that sort of preciousness of your whole life type stuff, like, one there's a thing from Eric Rush about it's just one man's opinion type stuff, and that all these things, whilst they're important to you and you're passionate about them and you're giving them your all, at the end of the day they don't matter. The preciousness of life and the people around that love you and care for you matter. Like, has that been sort of something that you've been able to touch on with some of the guys, at a more sort of personal level, like like you say, it's just 80 minutes, or it's just one season, or there's more to this. This is a point in time.
Yeah, definitely. I was pretty fortunate. A couple years back, the flat I was in, Ethan was in it just as he made the Marco. Dave Eaglestaff and Andrew Stevens. Andrew Stevens played over 100 games for Buller. Dave Eaglestaff's played about 30 or something. So we were obviously a pretty rugby mad active on it. That it's not. There's no way either of them would be playing till they're 60, and there's no way I'd be refereeing professional rugby till I'm 60. So it was the mindset of making the most of it and enjoying it. There's a pretty powerful quote that Robin Williams said on set. I remember reading it not long after he passed away. And he said, "We've all got to stand still at some stage and take everything in, because not everybody gets to do what we get to do." And he was talking to another actor on And I think it's pretty real for sportsmen, for sportswomen. Not everybody gets to do what they get to do. Not everybody gets to do what I get to do. Not everybody gets to do what you get to do. And I don't think at times, and I've always said that to other referees in the squad when they're making their debuts. I'm very tight with the likes of Ben O'Keefe and Paul Williams, and I spoke to Paul before his doing his Bledisloe last weekend, and I just said, make sure you take the time to smell the roses, mate, because not everybody gets to do what you get to do. And Ben has the second Bledisloe Cup game, so there's another Kiwi who gets the opportunity to referee his home nation, which is is a rare thing. So the same thing with those lads, and especially with Ethan. Ethan's got an incredible work rate and work ethic, and to be able to sort of be around him and just see him put it into fruition, but also have his own personal passions. Like he's a hunter. He's a Golden Bay boy. He's a Collingwood kid. So, he loves the outdoors. He loves going boating with his mates and hunting and all that sort of stuff. So to see him have that balance as well is quite good, because it kind of keeps me on the right ledger. And the likes of a lot of the other boys, the Quinn Strangers of the world, the day he got named in the All Black squad, he turned the TV on to sort of see how many of the lads were in the squad, and all of a sudden his name gets rung out. And, those guys they're still very, very grounded, and they've got a good group around them that keep them grounded. So it's been quite cool to rub shoulders with those guys. And even when I was down in Southland, there's a few other guys down there, same thing, rub shoulders with them, and the opportunity to referee in the provinces, and do the same, and just see that, for a lot of them are aware that there's life after footy, and they've got to prepare for that, because that, like I said, that time frame is unknown. There's probably, I don't know, not fully in that, right in the middle of that industry and that professional side of things, to know if they do enough from New Zealand rugby perspective to support the guys. They can only do so much. It's like I said before, they can only do so much. It's up to the man to actually take that step. So, there's quite a few of the guys that, come fresh out of college, and that's probably the biggest challenge rugby has at the moment, is they're getting these guys fresh out of high school, and they don't know anything else other than rugby. And for some of them, they'll carry on and be, very, very skilled and capable Mitre 10 Cup players. Some will go on and be very skilled and capable rugby players, and some will go further. But some of them won't make that jump. And professional rugby as a player, the Mitre 10 Cup goes for 3 months. So they've got to think of something else around that. And I think we see it with a lot of players that have that external thing. There is something else that they know that we'll make the most of this while I can, but once I'm done, I'm going to go and do this. I think we see those guys really shine, because they kind of get the shit sorted out, They're going to make the most of this opportunity because it's been given to them through the skills and talent that they have, all the while trying to develop the skills and talent to be able to take the opportunity at the next step.
Yeah. Mate, you spoke about, being more professional and that sort of stuff, and I sort of played mostly second division rugby, won a few championships in those, but the odd first premiership game as well, and like I said, playing qualifying level, squad level sevens for Southland and Canterbury. But I was always when it came to the whole morning, basically focused on the game, and then before the game I'd sort of give myself a little outlet. I used to do this silly thing on Snapchat called the Rugby Roundup, just for a bit of fun. I think it was release the pressure valve a little bit before I got serious again. What do you sort of do as the referee to mentally prepare on game day? Is it music in the ears? Is it walking around? Is it having the right food? Or what do you do, mate?
Yeah, but all sorts. Obviously, it depends. Most games obviously play in the afternoon, so it's quite easy to structure your day. to that. If your game's in the evening, it's a little bit more challenging, especially if if you're not in a town that you're familiar with, or if it's a midweek game like Mighty Cup, and they had those Wednesdays and Thursday night games. It was tough because your team three, so your ARs and your TMO were obviously at work usually.
Mm-hmm.
You had the whole day to kind of just twiddle your thumbs. But yeah, I was always music. Music was a big one for me. I kind of structured the day pretty well. I don't mind having a yarn. So we all talk always in the refereeing circles. They always talked about turning up to a game 45 to 60 minutes before kickoff. But I always went for an hour and a half, just to allow any of that, seeing someone I knew and having a bit of a yarn and a catch up. Because when everyone's excited about footy, it's very easy to see someone and then be like, "G'day, mate." 10, 15 minutes has disappeared and you've forgotten your warm up. So I always tried to allow as much time there as I could. I delved in and structured my my time. So when I arrived on the park, and made sure that I it ticked off these different times. So when I arrived at the park, between arriving and chatting with the managers to set out a pre-match chat, I'd have a bit of time to sort of chill and find the place. And then music was a big one. A good feed in the morning was always quite crucial. I didn't like to eat too close to kickoff, because that always it's always tough to run around on a full stomach. What else did I do? I always used to warm up. I always warm up. When I warm up, I referee an imaginary game of footy for 10 minutes. So I'll actually run around in the middle of the pitch and pretend I'm actually refereeing the game. I won't blow the whistle or make the signals because that would be awkward on the teams are watching. I used to do that in training, but yeah, I'll put the headphones in and I'll run around. And for me, it gets me in the zone. I guess it's a bit like teams. They'll have a quick sort of light team run. The forwards they'll do a couple of line-out moves, the backs will do some backs moves, and then they'll come together before they go into the shed and get going. So for me, it was a bit like that. I'd actually run around and referee a scrum and then referee a ruck, and then there'd be a box kick or a charge down or an intercept, and I'd actually and it sort of got me into the groove and into the move of things. So that was one of the things that I always did. Always listen to music. First thing I always did was skip for 2 minutes in the shed. I don't know why I started doing that, but I quite like skipping. And probably the only...
I tried to start a hashtag for a while there that real men do skip.
They do. I've got quite handy at it. I did it as in my like when I was training. So on the sort of the workouts and HIIT workouts I used to do, I'd always warm up with skipping, and I just quite enjoyed it because it was my little way of sort of game face, sort of going right. We're in. I'd put headphones on. I always listen to the same song, and it just got me in the zone.
We're having a rocky moment,
Sort of, yeah. I guess, yeah. Didn't punch anyone.
Thankfully.
Probably a few times I felt like it, but it was kind of that. It just got me into the zone. Like I'd done the pre-match chats. I'd done the yarns with the managers and the coaches and stuff. So then all of a sudden it was my time and it was time to get ready. So headphones went on and I'd skip. And sometimes I'd be skipping in the most weirdest spots in the changing shed because they weren't big ones. So I'd be in the shower trying to skip, or I'd be out in the corridor. Forsyth Bar's a good one. Down the actual big long alleyway out the back, I was down halfway down there skipping, and all the people, there's someone halfway down there skipping with boots on and ref kit. What's he up to? And they're like, oh, that's the ref. So people go, oh, right, okay.
This guy.
This guy. So that was just. I mean, those are just habits that I've created that allow me to get myself into that mindset that I need to be in. So yeah, those are just pre-game rituals. Fridays were always a day of doing anything else.
Mhm.
Throughout the week, you'd obviously have your days to watch different footy and do your preparation and that. I religiously had my bag packed on a Wednesday night. I always had a list, but that stemmed from a season where I lived when I was in Waikato and I travelled to Invercargill. Was when I first started doing predominantly prems. And honestly, about 4 out of the 15 games that I refed, I got there and I'd forgotten something.
Oh, shit.
I always forgot a towel. Like it was always forgot a towel. So the warehouse would often provide me with a towel. I forgot boots. I'd always forget one thing. Like boots was I forgot one season. I forgot 2 sets of boots, and so I had to buy boots, which was a bit poor because I was in the New Zealand on the refereeing squad, and we got kit supplied. So I had free boots sitting at home, but I had to go and buy boots. And because we were sponsored by Adidas, I could have gone and bought Mizuno's and worn them in club rugby. It wouldn't have been a bad thing. But yeah, I always went and bought Adidas. And of course, they're not cheap. Often forgot a whistle. So yeah, same thing, whip in the Rebel Sport and get a whistle. But from then on, I had a little box. I called it my kit of shit. And it's got about 6 or 8 whistles in it. 15 or 20 the old 20 cent, 50 cent pieces, the big ones. So the coin toss because appear in the mud. Watch, I often forgot my watch. So yeah, it wasn't until I had that season then I was like, well, mate, I need to make a plan here. So I wrote a list of everything that I needed for game day, and on Wednesday nights I packed it. Or depending, I always packed it so 3 days prior to kickoff. So if my game was on a Saturday, then Wednesday. If the game was on a Sunday, then do it on Thursday. And I had a podcast today. Only one thing I've done, which I'm probably looking back now is a bit weird, but since my first class debut since when I made the South Island Zone squad, so doing Colts and Southland B, Otago B stuff, I've had the same pair of undies that I've worn as a referee.
Love it.
Yeah, I've always been washed in between, obviously, but they're always my game day jocks. They're in better condition than what most people probably think, because that stems back to 2010. So I've done 10 years at that level, so they're probably due for a change. But shout out to jockeys, like they're still actually.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Mate, this has been a freaking awesome yarn, just off the cuff, and as I said, thanks so much for delving deep into some of your experiences. They're not always easy to relive, but you've said it a few times, and we've talked about it, the Real Effect. Where do people find you and find the Real Effect, and how do they connect and move forward with this sort of thing if it sounds like them?
Yeah, so we've got the social media channels. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook's probably the easiest one to connect with us on. We've got a website up and running, so it's therealeffect.co.nz. Real spelt with two E's, like the fishing reel. And we're based in Nelson, so our missions are set out in the Kahurangi National Park, which is a pretty cool little location. No cell phone reception, anything like that. And run these missions, 3-day missions, one every month, end of every month. So I've got one coming up in a couple of weeks, and then November, December, moving on. So in an ideal world, I'd work for it full time, mate, and I'd run these missions every weekend just to get blokes outside and away. But it's small steps at the moment, and just trying to start building that awareness of what it is and what we're trying to achieve. It's a 3-day 2-night outdoor getaway, or sort of men's mental health retreat. So we head off out into the bush on the Friday. We spend the night setting up camp. Everything's provided: food, tent gear, etc. You just basically need to turn up with sleeping bag and warm clothes, and the attitude to disconnect. So we get out and do that, learn the art of fly fishing, but get out in nature. what I'm wanting to do is have those weekends, but also set it up as trying to set up as a charity. So obviously we can get some bit more financial assistance to make this a lot more appealing to people. I think as we know, mental health can affect us in a whole different range, and one of it can be financial. So if I can make it free for every bloke to be able to come on, then and as long as we can cover the costs of everything, then that's the overall goal. But I want to set up a program where, for the guys that need a bit more support than the blokes that just need a weekend to chill out, we would have sort of 4 or 5 days out in the bush. Get the professionals in. I'm by no means a professional when it comes to mental health, but just get that support out there for these blokes. Introduce them to this, to a potential hobby, and then from there have 6 or 8 weeks where they get that support ongoing. So they'll get access to a counsellor, and they'll get, say, a gym membership to get their physical component up. And then at the end of that 6 or 8 weeks, we'd come back out to the bush sort of for 4 or 5 days and recap what we've achieved, and then sort of reset and refocus moving forward, and hopefully in that create a bit of a brotherhood. Because as those guys are on that 6 or 8 week journey, they'll be doing it hopefully together, and they can share those experiences with each other to obviously better help and better support each other, which is what I'm trying to do by sharing my story, is hopefully connect others to be able to do the same. So running a little fundraiser at the moment. I'm pretty fortunate, as I said, in the rugby circles, to meet some pretty awesome blokes, and I've managed to get 5 signed Super Rugby jerseys from the 2020 Super Rugby Aotearoa season, and I've got them up on the Facebook page, just trying to fundraise and raffle them off at the end of the month. It's a $5 entry to whatever jersey you want, and for as many entries as you want. And yeah, hopefully that can raise a bit of money to go back in to pay for these trips to get our blokes out and off grid.
Wicked, bloody awesome, and I'll try get all those links into the show notes, mate. You've given us plenty of tools and plenty of frameworks and ways to think about stuff. So you're probably going to have to dig deep for this one. What's something that always shows up in your life and means that you're in that flow state and things are going well? It can be a mantra or a quote, or just a thing you try practice.
I've got plenty of quotes. I think one thing that I do before every single game of rugby is I find a space somewhere on the field. It's usually in the end goal, either on the post or in the corner, and I'll listen to a poem, Our Deepest Fear.
Mm-hmm.
And have you heard that one?
No.
Our Deepest Fear. I've sort of summed it up a little bit shorter, but it goes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. Playing small in this world, there's nothing enlightening about shrinking so other people don't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as others do.
Cool.
And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously let other people to the opportunity to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. And that's something that I listen to before every single game, and it just enlightens me to know that what I am trying to achieve in my life will hopefully, and bring that light, will hopefully liberate others to do the same. So in a roundabout way, I'm just trying to bring my own light to hopefully light up someone else's world, and then they can in turn do the same for others.
Magic, mate. That's what this podcast is all about. Giving the proof, giving the permission for people to go out there and get after it, and yeah, exactly that, share their light as well. So thanks so much, man, for sharing that and everything that you've shared in this conversation. You know, we've been talking about doing this for a while, and it's bloody awesome to do it, especially after a great All Blacks win. So thanks so much. Yeah, Mike, we'll press stop
Thanks.
on that.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Appreciate it. It's awesome what you're doing, being able to share other people's stories as well. And yeah, you're doing a good job too, mate. So I appreciate your time.
Cheers, mate. Awesome.